Ladies and gentlemen, RosterWatch Nation, welcome back to the epic RosterWatch podcast brought to you by RosterWatch.com. My name is Alex Dunlap here for a very special edition of the pod with one of the great friends of RosterWatch, an OG RosterWatch family. His name is Mike Band. You can find him on Twitter at mbandnfl. You can find his content over at NextGen Stats, NFL.com. He's got some awesome articles up right now. You should not miss his can't miss prospects and his high risk prospects based on their analytic profiles. Mike has a background in scouting where he was. Mike, why don't you tell him about your background? Because I don't know what I'm allowed to say and what I'm not. It used to all be such a secret.
Yeah. It's good to be back with you. I remember we met years ago back on the Senior Bowl and Combine circuit.
It was like a decade ago. It was like
a decade ago. It's incredible.
You were fresh out of undergrad.
Fresh out of undergrad, right before I joined the Vikings scouting department. And God, I remember those days meeting up at the Combine every year, having a drink at Highline or whatever that bar was. It's just, it was a good time to always connect with you guys. And, especially now this time of year, it's the week of, it's draft week.
This guy, our friend Michael Yeager, man, in the chat saying to let you out of your underground cell. That's we talk. We used to talk to those Vikings scouts at pro days, and we'd be like, "What are you guys doing with Mike Band, man? Go easy on him." And they're like, "No, man, we just stick him down underground and have him pound out these scouting reports for us." But yeah, got a bunch of great education there, and of course went on to do everything you've done in the analytics world. We're always so proud of you, brother. And always great to see and hear your voice. I know that a bunch of people are. It's going to be a welcome sight and a welcome sound to see and hear from you. So we're here with Mike as usual. We do the top 10 mock draft with him every year, where Mike and I both do the huddle report competition. Mike always fares a little bit better than I do, but I get a lot of help from his research and some of his suggestions during this podcast, because really putting together the top 10, Mike, is what really sets the stage and sets the table for the rest of the draft. And it feels like with this one, I honestly think starting at 4, things start getting a little bit weird and squirrely. I know that you kind of have some different theories about it. We'll get to all of it, but just your general overall thoughts on the class before we start this top 10 mock. Your thought. You've been doing mock after mock after mock after mock. Are there any common themes that you see coming up, or just kind of anything different this year with how? You're so good at collecting this information, right? And generally you have all the info about, who's visited where, who has been talking to who's been reported as having interest here. This year's different with everything. The medicals to the visits to how these teams might be reacting to players who might carry a higher risk profile when they haven't ever gotten to get them in the building yet. If they haven't gotten a good medical on them, if they haven't been to the combine, like there's a million different reasons for this draft to be a little bit weird and unpredictable this year. What are some general themes that you've noticed that are kind of going into what you're projecting in this first round?
Yeah, it comes down to connecting all the dots, putting together the pieces of information that are out there. Some of them are false, some of them are simply smoke, but there's definitely a lot of truth out there in some of this buzz, in some of these rumors. Connecting the dots, trying to figure out what all these teams would do in these situations, trying to evaluate what they've done historically. Even without these private workouts, even without these top 30 visits, there's definitely still buzz out there to find and to mine for the right research that, trying to connect the right players to the right teams and trying to predict this thing from the front end. It's going to be a tough year, just like you said, from a standpoint of trying to slot the guys to each spot. It's going to come to a lot of breaking down these teams from a schematic standpoint. I think these offensive tackles, trying to figure out where they go and where they fit best is a fun task. Trying to figure out where their wide receivers will go. Do any of them go in the top 10? There's a lot of questions. We certainly don't have as many answers as we usually do during this part of the process. But yeah, I'm excited to get rolling and trying to talk out what these teams might do with each of their picks.
All right, well, let's just start out then, because at number one, we have the Cincinnati Bengals. Clearly, that's – I mean, do we need to talk too much about Joe Burrow? Just, was the leader of basically the best college offense I've ever seen in my life. I said ever since he played Texas, I said to myself, I would take that guy over Tua. I said that in the second game of this last season after I saw what he was able to. That wasn't even his best game. That guy got better throughout the season, but just his ability to just dissect and slice and dice and find those hot reads, it really was something to behold. Joe Burrow. Do we even really need to talk much about it? What do you have on Joe Burrow? I'm assuming that's gonna be my pick. So let's block it in for Alex. Is Joe Burrow to the Cincinnati Bengals at number one? Or are you staying with the chalk, or you got something weird up your sleeve?
Staying with the chalk. It's hard to find anybody who doesn't think that this pick's going to happen. Whether or not they keep Andy Dalton on the $17 million contract that they owe him this year, they can cut him without any dead money. But whether or not they've got the cap space to keep him on potentially in a backup role would be definitely an interesting move. What makes Joe Burrow special is what he can do when the play breaks down. His downfield accuracy, his moxie, his competitiveness, his overall confidence in his ability. You talk about the it factor. I think he does have it, and he helps you compete with the likes of Lamar Jackson and Baker Mayfield in a tough young division. Joe Burrow, number one of the Bengals, it looks like a chalk, and you could probably write it in pen at this point in the process.
And they get him back in. They get Jonah, right? Or they get Jonah from last year. It's right. Like two top 10 pick or two awesome picks for me for fantasy. It really, if they can get the deal done with Joe Mixon, he's going to be coming into a lot better situation this next season. So, very, very interesting there. Or it's probably not interesting that it's Joe Burrow. That's not what the people are tuning in to hear. At Washington, though, some people think that they could go quarterback. We know that Dwayne Haskins sucks. Do you think Haskins sucks?
I think you got to give Haskins a chance. Whether or not you can say that the offense last year was necessarily built for him to succeed. He didn't have many receivers to throw to. His offensive line broke down towards the end of the season. I think the jury's still out on Haskins. I think he put on his Ohio State tape and what he did in that West Coast passing system. I think they're definitely going to give him another shot, and I think that this is also a pick in pen where you can slot Chase Young to the Redskins with the second pick. The simply clear best player available after Joe Burrow on the board.
Chase Young, the defensive end edge rusher out of Ohio State. And to me, it's just like, Michael Lombardi talks about it, former NFL executive Michael Lombardi, and a dude who's super plugged in. But just besides being super plugged in, I like to listen to him on his podcast, the GM Shuffle, because I'm a huge fan of his book, Gridiron Genius. And in that book, he talks about, building teams by strength on strength. That was a big Al Davis kind of deal. And just the strength of that Redskins team is a good, young, pedigreed front seven, great defense. You have a new defensive-minded head coach and Ron Rivera coming in there. The kid like Chase Young. I mean, people like, from what I've seen of Chase Young, I think I like Nick Bosa better. Do you like him? How do you compare him to the where does Chase Young fit to you with the Bosa brothers? Because I think for me, it might go Nick Bosa, Chase Young, Joey Bosa.
At this point, I think you might even have to put Chase Young ahead of the brothers, and it comes from the standpoint of what he offers athletically. I think the Bosa brothers themselves are very similar in that they're a speed to power, win with bull rush and win with speed. But Chase Young's got that freak athleticism, man. He's got that juice. He's got the explosiveness. I think he could be one of the best edge rushers in the game. almost immediately. And you're right, when you do put him across from other talents like Ryan Kerrigan and Montez Sweat, and you've already got Jonathan Allen there, and you've got the depth that they have on the Redskins front seven, it definitely helps solve an area of weakness last year, which was the pass defense. Now they certainly have other needs across other positions across their roster. You've got needs at corner, you've got needs at offensive tackle if Trent Williams has come back, but Chase Young's just too good to pass up it too.
Yeah, and you didn't mention Payne. I forget Payne's first name.
Yeah, Deron Payne.
Deron, yeah, he was a first rounder himself.
Right.
So that's salty, dude. And I'm with you all the way. I think if Cincinnati didn't have such a need at the quarterback position, that he'd be in the cards there for a home state sort of pick, right? For the Bengals. So right there with you. Let's move on to the next one here, and that is the Detroit Lions at 3. I'm under the impression that if Bob Quinn could find a trade partner, he wants to trade down. But he said in meetings this week, like, it's pretty telling for that guy to say, like, look, it takes two to tango.
Right.
It takes. I'm not sure there's interest. I'm not sure that there's interest in trading up to this spot. It would seem like there could be interest, though, to get at least ahead of, let's see, picks 5 and 6 that are quarterback picks. If you did covet one of these guys, if you liked a Justin Herbert, a Tua Tagovailoa, et cetera.
Yeah, this seems like either it's a trade down scenario like the Chargers moving up from 6 to 3. So it really comes down to, do the Dolphins and Chargers specifically believe that the other is interested in their quarterback of choice? Do the Chargers believe if they want Tua that the Dolphins will take Tua at 5? If so, you're going to have to jump the Dolphins at 5 to get to number 3. Same with the Dolphins. If you believe that you confidently believe in Herbert or Tua, you certainly have the capital to move up to 3 to ensure that you get your guy. But in the end, I think they're not going to necessarily have the trade partner that's going to give up the king's ransom to move up for their quarterback. And in the end, they stay at 3 and take the top quarterback on the board in Jeff Okudah. You look at the Patriots' way. That's really how the Lions have built their team under Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia. And a lot of signs point to building out in the trenches. So don't rule out a player like Derek Brown. But in the end, Jeff Okudah just solves a need that they have at the cornerback position. They traded Darius Slay to the Eagles earlier this offseason. So there's a clear need there. Whether or not they're able to make a trade down to 6, they could still get Okudah, but in the end, they have to stay at 3 because there's not enough a potential buyer for the right price.
They definitely want to. They would love to trade to 6. That's having your cake and eating it too. We have Michael Yeager again asking, maybe the Eagles move up that high to grab Ruggs. I don't think that that's realistic at all. I think that they could probably, there are different spots that they can move up once we get past 10. I think.
Yeah. On that note, I think you might not see very many teams looking to move up to get a receiver. The class is so deep that it's not worth it to say move up from 21 all the way into potentially the top 10 area for a receiver. The Broncos, I've heard, could be a team that could try to move up to get their guy, whether that's Jerry Jeudy or Henry Ruggs is unclear. But if teams move up to make a trade for these top guys, it'll be for the guys at premium positions like quarterback or offensive tackle, more so than the deep position of receiver.
I'm picking Jeff Okudah too. And he's awesome. I mean, I've watched him dating back to high school, at these camps here around Texas. He was trained by my buddy, Coach Clay Mack, ever since he was like in 8th grade, just a skill specific monster and a dude who's just very, very, very clean as a prospect. They need him. Did the Lions recently got Desmond Trufant, right?
They did.
That's a good duo. But Desmond Trufant doesn't automatic because it's him and what is it? Do they still have Justin Coleman?
Coleman's still there, but you need 3. Hey, I've got an idea for you. Crazy trade scenario. I know it got rumored and thrown out there. It's just a rumor, but I thought the idea was fun. Could you envision a world where the Patriots trade up from 23 to 3 with their former colleague?
Oh, yeah.
They trade 23 colleagues. They trade 23 and Stephon Gilmore to the Lions for the 3rd overall pick to take Justin Herbert.
I'm
not saying it's a theory that could make sense on both sides. Whether it's going to happen is probably not.
It's too much. It's too much.
Too much.
Give away Gilmore?
Well, you're paying him $15 million a year already on the cap on the contract that you just gave him. And really, when it comes down to it, the quarterback position trumps all when it comes to trying to solve that position. If you're the Lions and you come out of the first round with 23 and Stephon Gilmore, you're definitely going to be thinking about it.
Oh, God. Yeah, I mean, you're like, well, we got cornerback solved. Like, it's solved. Yeah. We didn't get the young kid, and it's going to be expensive. But
that would be if the Patriots felt very strongly about Herbert. I know that there's talks if they'd be in the play to trade up for a sliding Tua. But whether or not Herbert would be even available past the 5th pick, you'd have to get up to 3 if you wanted to make that move. Okay,
well, look, my pick here is Jeff Okudah. I'm not going to be buying into the idea that they're moving up for Herbert. But boy, we need some action right now, right? Like, wouldn't that be just awesome? Like, people would.
That would be fun.
We need something like that right now. Okay. Next pick here we have so we have the New York Giants. David Gettleman hopefully gets his Zoom going and up correctly. And look, to me, it's like when you look at the Giants team needs, it seems like tackle has been a need that they've tried addressing. Since Gettleman's been there, now they have a chance to basically take their pick of any of these guys. To me, I'll just say it. I think a Gettleman type guy. Just when I've noticed Gettleman, and just from the Giants in general as well, just organizationally under the Maras, they like these big players through the trenches. It's like when I think of Giants traditional guys, and I know we talked about it beforehand. I know that Parcells and Dave Gettleman didn't necessarily cross paths there with that organization, but Jesus, I mean, he was there for however many years right after Parcells. That shit was still pretty much ingrained in the culture. I think that the Becton kid is a Gettleman type pick. Do you think that I'm, way off and maybe mocking him there? What do you even think they're going to tackle? Like, what do you think?
Yeah, so I do think that they are going to go with the tackle. So my projection of what their board looks like is this. I think that their board looks like Jedrick Wills, the tackle from Alabama, Tristan Wirfs, the tackle from Iowa, and then Isaiah Simmons. I think the pick is coming down to those 3. Becton does have some intriguing traits. He's a 360-pound freak, really, with left tackle, right tackle flexibility. When it comes down to it, I think it's going to come down to familiarity. Joe Judge, the new head coach in New York, just said recently that familiarity with these players and being able to trust your connections is going to be a huge factor without these private workouts and private meetings when getting to know these kids. Joe Judge has a long history at the University of Alabama, You connect Joe Judge to Belichick and all the way to Saban. Belichick loves to draft from Alabama, loves to take in the advice that he gets from the Alabama coaches. I really think that when it comes down to it, familiarity wins out. Jedrick Wills, you can plug in right away at right tackle. You leave Nate Solder at left tackle for at least one more year. He's cuttable after next year, but the $16 million dead money number for Nate Solder means that he's going to be on your roster. I don't think you move him over to right tackle, which is how it narrows it down to the right tackle prospects, who are Wills and Wirfs. So when it comes down to it, I think Wills is the guy. I could totally see Isaiah Simmons in any other year if right tackle wasn't such a priority, that Isaiah Simmons would be an ideal fit, an ideal type of prospect that Gettleman does crave, the ultimate what can you do for me type prospect. But
show me what he can do.
Show me what he can do. Remember, we sat right behind him at the Senior Bowl that one day and listening to his theories on the draft. And it definitely comes up in the type of prospects that he drafts. But when it comes down to it, you got to protect your number one asset that you just invested the 6th overall pick in last year, and that's Daniel Jones. Protect Daniel Jones. They haven't done that yet in this offseason. They do it with the 4th overall pick.
All right, so we get to 5 here, and it becomes interesting because I'm looking at the prop over on mybookie.ag about Justin Herbert. The over/under for him is set at pick 5.5 right now. A small bit of juice on the over at minus 135 for over the 5.5. But for under, it's still minus 105. So pretty. I mean, it isn't juiced too heavily, really, either way. It's not like he's a favorite, or it isn't like he's an underdog for really either of these. It's pretty close, but probably a little bit more action on him, but maybe going a little bit after, maybe him going pick 6 or after. Do you believe all year we've come to believe tank for Tua, and then the Senior Bowl happens and Tua's medical concerns happen and the pandemic happens where these guys can't get their hands on the players to get their team physicians to look at them? Is it Herbert here? Are you and if so, is that in pen for you at this point?
It's definitely not in pen, but just trying to play the role of putting on the same hat that GM Chris Greer and head coach Brian Flores are going through. They armed up. They have 14 picks in this draft class. They've definitely made it clear that they're looking for their franchise quarterback, and he's not on roster. Is it Justin Herbert or is it Tua that is the number 2 quarterback on their board, or after Burrow? My guess is that it's Herbert, and the reason is a lot to do with the type of decisions that the Dolphins have made in recent, throughout this rebuilding phase since Brian Flores came on. I think there's a lot to like about Herbert. I think, from a consistency standpoint, throughout his career, is 4-year starter, pretty accurate, really good head on his shoulders. I think that there's a lot of reason that a team could fall in love with him. And then there's, conversely, enough reason that would push to down, or at least take him to a point where there's enough risk associated with the pick that he is not your guy. If you have a risk aversion to say the medical, if you have a risk aversion to his durability as a whole, he doesn't have that big of a frame. He definitely puts himself in situations where he takes a lot of hits. If you have that risk aversion, there is a world where you can rank Justin Herbert as a better long-term fit for your scheme and for what you're trying to do than Tua. Let's remember, the Dolphins hired Chan Gailey as their offensive coordinator. The prototypical, shotgun, quick passing game. I think that fits what Herbert does more than it fits Tua's game. So in the end, I think Justin Herbert is the pick for the Dolphins. They stay at 5 and pass on tank for Tua.
Do you think they're in love with Herbert? You got to love him.
You got to love him. And that's what all this quarterback, the QB merry-go-round, the QB carousel, that is the offseason. You got to love your guy. And from all indications, there's no reason to think that the Dolphins leaning towards Herbert isn't the truth.
Well, what do you think of, like, in all your research, have you not even heard any whispers of, like, if Wirfs is available here, or if Andrew Thomas is available here, or Wills, or one of these tackles? I mean, they traded away Laramie Tunsil last year. They got back Julian Davenport, who sucks. I mean, what do you think? I mean, could they maybe say, dude, we're going to go offensive. We're going to take a mulligan this year. We thought it was going to be tank for Tua, and now Tua is kind of injured. Like, we began to have more problems. He's kind of a little bit shorter than everybody, a little bit shorter and slighter than everybody sort of thought. There's an extra deal now where it's not just the hip. There's also 2 injuries that previously we might have not been disclosed with the 5th metatarsal. Like, is it like, does it have to be quarterback? It
doesn't have to be quarterback. If it all comes down to the process. If, just like you said a minute ago, if you don't love these guys, then you're not taking them, and that's how a lot of these quarterbacks end up falling in the first round of the draft. Is that there's not enough. There's no one to catch them after they're the teams that don't need one. But when it comes down to it, I just don't think that they're in a position or that they're going to set themselves up for a next year's draft, right? So you always have to look ahead. We know we have Trevor Lawrence in that year's class, but the way that they have attacked free agency, the way that they brought in a lot of high-priced free agents, it definitely indicates to me that they're willing to sort of buy in now and not necessarily wait to next year to start their whole rebuilding phase. So that's why I think quarterback's the play. If it's not a quarterback, if you don't take a quarterback at 5, then you're not taking one at 18, and you're not taking one at 26.
Well, what about if they've like to say? What if they said, like, well, look, we got Fitzpatrick this year. I think is Rosen still even on contract with them, or I don't even know what that is. Like, I'm not even considering him as part of. Is he still on contract, Rosen?
He is still under contract.
Okay, so I mean, what if they said, like, dude, we like Jordan Love? They
could. I mean,
like, if there was something like that, where, I mean, I don't know,
Personally, I don't see the top 20 love for Jordan Love. For lack of
I don't either.
On there.
I don't either.
Yeah. And when you try to break down who the Dolphins or even try to say who the Patriots would evaluate highly and the traits that they look for, because that's what they're trying to do here. With Brian Flores as a head coach, they're trying to emulate the Patriot way: high character, high work ethic, building a culture. And to me, that screams Herbert.
I think you're talking me into it. You think you're talking me into it.
Yeah.
But you gotta love him,
Yeah,
so
you gotta love him.
We'll just see if they love him. All right, so I'm gonna go with you here. I was gonna go non-chalky there, but I'm gonna enter my pick here in our sheet. Justin Herbert. Let's send him. All right, and so what that takes us to is the Chargers, and this for me is simple because if Tua is there, it feels like that's probably their guy. It's chalky what we're doing. I feel like you and I might diverge here after this, but I think you like Tua to the Chargers as well. It seems like it just kind of makes sense.
It does. The way that the Chargers approached rebuilding the offensive line, they signed Brian Bulaga. They traded for Trey Turner. That's a right tackle, a right guard. What do you do with the left? What do you do with the left-handed quarterback? Their blind side's on the right side. So I think it just makes sense what they're trying to do. A lot of times, they've got Tyrod Taylor as their current starter. I think a big part of what you do when you're looking for a quarterback is you try to put your starter and your backup, and you try to have them have similar traits. Because when you build a scheme around some guys, you want them to follow some of the similar type of skills that they excel at. And for Tyrod Taylor, for Tua, it's plays on the move, a lot of play action, a lot of quick passing game, some RPO work. I think when you put all the things together, I think that's what links Tua as the best fit for the Chargers. I've got it in pencil now, but man, if the Chargers pass on Tua at 6 because of the injury history, who knows where he'll go on draft day?
Yeah, I agree, man. Let's move on to the next one. I think I don't know where our sheet pull. I think it's Carolina. Is it Carolina? Yeah, so Carolina at 7. We have Luke Kuechly now gone. I know that leads a lot of people to say Isaiah Simmons. I might still say Isaiah Simmons. I'm interested to sort of see what you think, though, because what position is Isaiah Simmons even going to play? He's not going to come in and play. He's not going to come in and play. He's not going to be like the Mike that Luke Kuechly was. I mean, he looks more like a safety to me that you're bringing to the box on, on these, maybe when you go to dime, he moves to linebacker. How do you see Isaiah Simmons? I mean, clearly he's one of my favorite players in the draft. I think he's awesome. I think he's a prototype that a lot of teams that have these sort of tweener type players can go with. But I mean, for the people who say that they replaced Kuechly, that doesn't add up to me. He just feels like he's a different breed of player.
Yeah, they still have Shaq Thompson, who they just paid last year to sort of take the Mike Will position. But I think you're right. I think Isaiah Simmons does offer that rover linebacker versatility, where there is this role now in today's NFL. Who are the guys that are doing this the best? Malcolm Jenkins for the Eagles, a box safety who you put in a dime linebacker in passing situations. You can match them up on tight ends. Derwin James is a similar type of player. Landon Collins even has a similar type of skill set. So really, you're drafting a box safety who can line up all around the formation, can blitz in passing downs, can drop off and cover linebackers in space. When it comes down to it,
he's a star. You build around these guys, and Rule's trying to build a winning culture. He's from a winning program. Everybody knows that the most important thing at Dabo Swinney's program is the culture. He's built an incredible culture there at Clemson. It's one of the reasons they're kicking ass and taking names right now. Is just like Matt Rule is all about the process. He's all about building a culture. We've seen it at every stop. It's like he's like, I don't care in the year 1 record, got to build a culture. Year 2 record's always a little bit better. Year 3, he's like, playing for championships at every level. So I'm going to go with Isaiah Simmons here too, man. Like, I know that our mocks are going to kind of be the same, and people aren't going to get to see us fight over this here just yet. But yeah, dude, I think Isaiah Simmons, I'm going to put it in our sheet here. That is going to be my pick as well. And then so we'll move on to the next one, which is the Arizona Cardinals. And I was checking this earlier, Ben. Can you believe that it's like plus 450 that they go defense and minus 600 that they go offense? The Arizona Cardinals are picking an offensive player. Now it's just up to us to figure out which offensive player and at what position, because they could go tackle. Yeah. I mean, they could go CeeDee Lamb here. You say, look, we're not going to get any time to work out with any new receivers. Kyler already has this with CeeDee. He already has the connection with him. I just don't know after spending. I mean, last year they drafted Hakeem Butler. They drafted Andy Isabella. They drafted what's the kid from Keyshawn? Yeah, Keyshawn Johnson. What's his last name? Keyshawn Johnson.
Yeah, the other Keyshawn.
Cal. So big haul of wide receivers last year. I'm not sure they're going to be able to keep doing that. It feels like an offensive line pick to me. Where are you? I haven't even looked.
Yeah. So real quick, I think you brought up a good point, and it actually breaks down to what Cliff Kingsbury is trying to do. No team ran more 10 personnel last season than the Cardinals. That's 4 receivers on the field at the same time. Most teams don't do that very often. They were well over 15% in 10 personnel. So when you look at what that means, it means that they've got 4 receivers on the field at one time. So you've still got Christian Kirk. You just traded for DeAndre Hopkins. You still have Larry Fitzgerald, probably for one last season. it wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world to bring in CeeDee Lamb, who then takes over Larry Fitzgerald's role in the long term, because all four guys are going to see the field. So it would be a very interesting pick to see if they, again, adding strength to strength. If you build around Kyler Murray, adding another pass catching weapon is a possibility even after trading DeAndre Hopkins. Do I think that they do that? No. I think that they go with the right tackle. So they did just pay DJ Humphries to play left long term. That means that they're looking for a right tackle only, or a right tackle long term guy. When it comes down to it, I think it's going to be whoever the Giants don't take at 4. So if they don't take Tristan Wirfs, if the Giants go Jedrick Wills at 4, I think it just makes too much sense that the Cardinals would look for a right tackle prospect in Tristan Wirfs right there to plug in at right tackle. But this is probably the most likely trade down scenario of the first 8 picks, in that the Cardinals, I believe, only have 5 picks entering Thursday's draft. So if they are in a situation, I think that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a team that to watch out for right at 14, who could move up to 8 for their offensive tackle for them to protect Tom Brady. So the combination or the connection between Steve Keim in Arizona and Jason Licht at Tampa Bay, I think they worked together. They were colleagues for many years in Arizona. I think that connection could lead to a first-round trade where Tampa Bay moves up for their tackle. If they don't, I think the Cardinals stay put and take Tristan Wirfs, the tackle out of Iowa.
All right, so hold on. Where is Cleveland picking? So Cleveland picks at 10. Was it 10?
They're at 10.
Which pick are we on now? We're on set.
We're at 8.
Okay. Cleveland's going to take a tackle, right? So
or trade down. So they're definitely they're tackle or trade down.
I think they're going to be holding out. I think they would like Wirfs, because Wirfs, you know better. They're pretty analytically minded again, aren't they? Cleveland. They
are, but you do have to understand. You do have to remember that they just signed Jack Conklin to a long-term deal. So he's fixtured in as the long-term right tackle. If you're the Browns, you are looking for a left tackle only. So whether or not that's Andrew Thomas or Mekhi Becton, or even trading down for an Ezra Cleveland, whether or not the Browns are looking at Wirfs or say Wills, I don't know if that's the best fit, because those guys really only have experience at right tackle.
Wirfs could play left. I think he could.
And some scouts have even said he's a better guard. But he does have the feet. Whether or not the Browns stay at 10 and take their tackle, or move down and take a tackle that they prefer more, there's a lot of buzz about Ezra Cleveland going to Cleveland in a trade down scenario. So trying to figure out, I alluded to this earlier, it's very hard to figure out where these tacklers are going to go. You can try to sort of figure out which team needs a left tackle versus right tackle, and associate that with what position a lot of these prospects played primarily in college. So to me, that indicates that the Cardinals would want to prioritize Wills or Wirfs at 8.
Okay, fair enough. I'm gonna send them. I'm gonna send them Wirfs, and I believe you're sending them. Oh, you're sending them Wirfs too. Okay, well. So I still haven't diverted from here. Here's where I divert from you. Next, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars. Clearly a team that Dave Caldwell, we should never depend on him to do what we think he should do. He's done. We talked about Lombardi earlier. He's the one who says that I'm not sure this is true, but he always says that the Los Angeles Rams have more of Dave Caldwell's draft picks on their roster than Dave Caldwell has on his. We could see a draft day trade maybe involving Leonard Fournette, but I don't think that that'll happen until, the later rounds. I don't think he will come into play for any sort of talk here for this pick. For me, it's just too easy because, Jalen Ramsey's gone. We have who do they even have at cornerback right now?
So, AJ Bouye is also gone.
Yeah, like who do they even have right now? Is it just DJ Hayden?
DJ Hayden, Aaron Colvin. They definitely need help at corner.
Yeah, so it's going to be CJ Henderson is my pick here. He's going to go in the top 10.
Yeah, and I like that pick. I think so. My prediction is Derek Brown, the defensive tackle out of Auburn. But if Brown's not on the board, I think CJ Henderson is definitely being talked about for the Jaguars. And like you said, they definitely have a hole at corner. I just think, losing Calais Campbell, potentially trading Yannick Ngakoue, even after investing a first, they're in trouble. And from that perspective, Derek Brown, a key cog, a good all indications suggest he's a great character guy, a good, a guy you would want to build a defensive line around, and a team that really looks like it's rebuilding from the front seven. I think Derek Brown's a nice value pick at number 9.
Fair enough. All right, here we are to the final 10th one. Before we get into it, though, let's go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you on Twitter, where they can find your content, everything else that you're going to have here in the next the next couple of weeks, and then moving forward.
Appreciate it. Yeah. So you can find my stuff on Twitter at mbandnfl. I had a few articles come out last week on NFL.com, and one article coming out tomorrow. You can find a list of the NextGen Stats, can't miss prospects based off of our analytics model that we came up with for this season. It's essentially highlighting the 6 can't miss guys in the first round, the 6 potential high risk prospects in the first round, and then the standout starters and gems you can find in later on in the draft. Follow along all week long. I'll be posting my mock draft, team by team draft boards, and really it's just it's draft week, and it's exciting to that it's all finally coming to a head.
I can't believe you. It says you're a much better looking trash man. Mike Band has the best quarantine hair that I've ever seen. I was telling him before we got on. He happens to have a roommate that's like a hairstylist or something. Of course,
he's not even a hairstylist. Credit to you and Holden for giving me a nice little 2 on the sides.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. And not much better than Byron's DIY haircut himself.
Oh no.
Okay. All right. Cleveland Browns pick at 10.
Yeah.
I think they're going tackle. I'm gonna send them the guy that you sent. I'm gonna send them Wills at 10 here. I don't know if he's gonna fall that far. It's impossible for me to judge where these guys go, though. What do you think? You send him a tackle? You think what do you think about the Browns? Are an interesting spot, man. I think that the offensive line has been an issue. I mean, anytime last year, they had Desmond fucking Harrison last year that couldn't even play for Charlie Strong at Texas and had to go play JUCO somewhere as their starting left tackle after Joe Thomas gets out. You got your franchise quarterback. You have a bunch of really good pieces in place offensively. If you get Conklin, you can shore up the other side. That's to me. That's the way that I always love to see a team, being built, and I think an analytically driven organization might feel the same way. So, of course, we know that analytically driven franchises also love to trade down, though.
Yeah.
I could see that. What do you think? I think if this good of tackle, these tackles are good, and some good ones are going to fall there at 10. They're going to have a tough decision on their hands.
Yeah, certainly. I think it's either Andrew Thomas or a trade down. Like you alluded to, like we've been talking about, they added Conklin, so they do need someone to fill in the left tackle role long term. So you got to, again, look at where these guys played in college. Andrew Thomas, premier left tackle for Georgia for many years. He would be the guy that would be next on the board, or potentially the top left tackle prospect on teams' boards. This is an interesting part in the draft where you could see the Browns trade down from 10. A lot of buzz has come out recently that they really like Ezra Cleveland, the left tackle out of Boise State, who's receiving a lot of buzz. So a trade that could happen would be the Dolphins move up from 18 to 10. They jump the Jets, who would be looking at Andrew Thomas. They get their left tackle of the future to pair up with Justin Herbert. And really, when you put the two, when you leave the top 10 as the Miami Dolphins with Herbert and Andrew Thomas, you got to feel good about the future of your offense. With that said, there are other teams that could be looking to move up as well. The Broncos could be an interesting trade-up candidate for Jerry Jeudy from 15 to 10. And then in the case of this scenario, C.J. Henderson's available. So you could see the Falcons move up from 16 to 10 as well to take their corner. Again, the Bucs could be moving, could also be looking to move up for Andrew Thomas or for Mekhi Becton. So I think that the 10th pick, especially with the analytically savvy Browns front office, this is a prime spot for a trade down.
All right, well, that's the pod. So nice work, Band. Great job. To everybody, all the commenters on YouTube, Periscope, etc. Thank you guys for hanging out. Make sure and go give Band a follow on Twitter at @mbandnfl. I know most of you guys already are. He is family. So make sure you, if you're watching on YouTube and you've just discovered the podcast here, make sure and subscribe to the RosterWatch Podcast on Apple Podcasts. Wherever it is you listen, we got a ton of content this week. We got Byron and Trashman this week with our final rankings on running backs, wide receivers for the rookie class. And we'll have some live reactions here on YouTube to the actual NFL draft when it goes down. So as always, guys, love you. We will talk to you soon. Peace.